In 1984, I saw a movie that simply changed my life. I remember the moment that I sat with my siblings and my parents, and we watched the magic and the wonder, the glory of the original Karate Kid. The Karate Kid, you see, occurs in this mythical place for a child growing up in Chicago. The All Valley Tournament is clearly a mysterious other place that doesn't exist in this world. It's a place where Daniel LaRusso and Mr. Miyagi forge lifelong friendship. It's a place where Johnny Lawrence and high school kids in bright red leather jackets drive dirt bikes and chase each other. It's a place where the crane kick is possible. I didn't believe that there was a place called Encino. I didn't believe there was a place called Reseda. I didn't believe there was an Encino Commons or that people played miniature golf here in that kind of weather. And when I arrived to Los Angeles in 1997, Dafka, to become part of the movie industry, I was warned not to go into the valley. Everything important in Los Angeles, you see, as was explained to me, occurs in the city itself. Whatever happens on those other side of those mountains, that mountain range, it's not necessary. And so, for the first 20 or so years that I lived in Los Angeles, I visited Santa Monica, and I spent time in Malibu and Hollywood, and even East LA and the Inland Empire and Orange County, but very seldom, ever crossed Mulholland and ventured into the valley. And then something magical happened in my life. Two women invited me for a coffee that simply changed the direction of my life. And Nurit Rabin and Rosalind Grinberg invited me to a synagogue in the valley. I came, and I met people who lived in Encino. Never did I imagine in my entire life that I would live in the Karate Kid. I had dreamt, but I never imagined that that was possible. To be considered to be the rabbi of the Karate Kid was simply beyond any possibility that I imagined as a child. And so, this coincided exactly after my own kids became hooked on the new television show, Cobra Kai. Cobra Kai became our COVID show as a family. We sat together and watched together, and the story of Encino and Reseda and Daniel LaRusso and Johnny Lawrence was passed down to the next generation. When I came to visit VBS for the first time, I don't know what I imagined, but I certainly didn't find one karate fight anywhere in the building. And when I came back and told my kids that I didn't see any evidence of karate anywhere around Valley Beth Shalom, we all shared in the despair, the disappointment of that moment. Jeffrey Wax, who I didn't know at the time as well as I do today, and then my second day during the interview gave me patches for the kids from Netflix of Cobra Kai Dojo and Miyagi-Do Dojo. I brought it home with Blair, and it restored faith in my kids in the Valley experience. Cobra Kai turned the world upside down. It made Johnny Lawrence an empathetic character. It made Cobra Kai cool. And it also returned our family to the same narrative that had bonded my siblings and me. And now, when I walk down Ventura Boulevard, I feel a kind of magic. I feel a kind of magic even though I don't know exactly where Daniel LaRusso was covered in spaghetti. I don't know exactly where the dates occurred between Daniel and Allie. And I'm confident, wholeheartedly confident, that after this sermon, you will get the wrong message and people will come up to me and try to explain to me exactly where every moment of the movie happened. But the reason why I want to bring this up is because today, in the Torah, we learn the beginning of another important story that happens in a location far, far away, in a mythical place where God comes down from the heavens and meets Moshe Rabbeinu and the entire Jewish people. And we call that place Mount Sinai. And if the point of the story was that we should all know exactly where Mount Sinai is and we should make pilgrimages to Mount Sinai, then the Torah does an awfully poor job at explaining to us where it is. As a matter of fact, the Torah goes out of its way to explain that Mount Sinai is just a normal-looking mountain. Every time I even broach this topic, there are two congregants who come to my office and say, "But Rabbi, you don't understand. In the 70s, I visited Mount Sinai with an Israeli tour guide, and I have a t-shirt that says I visited Mount Sinai. How could that possibly be?" And I have faith that not only did they get a t-shirt, and not only was the falafel stand at the base of Mount Sinai good, but I also have faith that it was shielded for us for a reason. Not only is it shielded for us, but the Jewish tradition goes to great lengths to reverse the story and to explain to us that the tradition in which we believe isn't tied to a place called Sinai, it's tied to a city called Jerusalem. And the prophet who famously spoke those words is Isaiah, and I believe them so completely with my entire being that they're written on the wall behind me for all of us to remember for all time, Ki mitzion tetzei Torah, for it is out of Zion, out of Jerusalem, that we draw our Torah. How could it be that the Torah presents us with this place of Sinai? And it's more important for us not to know where it is. Professor Greenstein of Bar Ilan University, who's a professor emeritus of Bible, writes, "A myth or a narrative is true just as a metaphor is true. It's not the business of religion to establish the historical, and it's not the business of historical criticism to challenge religion. They ought to be complementary. Neither depends on or warrants the other." If that's the case, what is Sinai's lesson? What is Sinai's lesson? Why do I compare it? Why do I draw the analogy today to the Karate Kid and Cobra Kai? The lesson of revelation at Sinai and the giving of Torah is bigger than the details. I'm sure that for some generations they imagined Moses going up in sandals, and then they imagined Moses going up to meet God in dress shoes, and now undoubtedly he wore designer Nikes like every bar and bar mitzvah kid that comes up onto the bima. Without knowing the exact place and context of the location, we're allowed to relate it. It's allowed to speak to each and every generation as we imagine it. The importance of Sinai isn't that the Torah was given on this rock, or that God spoke to Moses at this longitude or that latitude. The genius of Sinai is that we attach ourselves to the story, that we stand year after year to listen to the Ten Commandments, and that generation to generation, welcome new participants in this ancient, ancient narrative. That the wonder and the majesty, the power of Sinai is the ability to sit with our families and enjoy the tradition of listening to the Torah together. I learned a lot of lessons from the show Cobra that just released its final set of episodes this weekend. The next chapter, the current chapter of the story of Daniel and Johnny, has now reached a conclusion. And it's clear to me that if you learn nothing from the show Cobra and I bet you anything you didn't think you were going to show up to shul this morning and learn the lessons of Cobra you learn the lesson that Cobra never dies. I have faith that there will be another chapter. And if there's not, I have faith that there will be another chapter of my family, God willing, sitting together on the couch and laughing and debating and getting angry and upset, filled with anxiety about cliffhangers, sharing time together. Cobra never dies. And I have faith every time I hear the story at Sinai that the Torah lives. Every time we sit together as community and the Torah is removed from the ark and we rise out of respect and honor, not only for the divine word, but for all of the generations that came before us, that stood together, that sat together, that enjoyed this narrative, and that enjoyed the possibility of affixing ourselves to the same story of the heroes of our tradition. It affirms within me a great sense that the Torah lives. The lesson of Sinai is togetherness. The lesson of Sinai isn't that location, but this one. It's not that group of people, but also this one. It's not Moses' family, it's your family. 432. The Torah lives. Shabbat shalom.